Yo, welcome back to another episode of the Sandbox Sports Podcast. And first, I gotta start off like this. Shout out to that man, Maul. Shout out to the best co-host in the game for just having his third child. He's not gonna be on this week. I'm gonna hold it down to fort. But we gotta show love to the big dog himself. Big proud of you, man. Happy to see the life of your young and beautiful baby girl. Happy to see where that goes. But the show must go on. We must continue bringing y'all content. And because it's just me this week, I really just want to check in on where the league is and where it's going. I gotta say, it's been so funky, and we've talked about it on the pod this season coming up, but it's been so funky looking at the play of a lot of these quarterbacks, bro. A lot of these team leaders have started off funky, whether that's starting off poor or way overachieving what was anticipated of them. And I've held back what I thought about it for a while, but I can't hold it back anymore, man. I want to talk about the shot callers on these teams, not the quarterbacks, but the play callers. Look, I've said this before to a lot of my buddies. I think the NFL is one of the only sports where the coaching matters a ton. Let me give you an example. You got a player like, let's use the Warriors for example. You got a player like Steph Curry. You got a player like Draymond Green. You got a player like Klay Thompson. When you have these guys on your team, a lot of it is, you're trying to get them in the right positions. You're trying to get them to get their shots open. You're trying to put them in spots where they can perform. But realistically, how quick the pace of the basketball game is Steph Curry really going to need Steve Kerr to tell him what to do to get shots up? Probably not. I say the same thing with LeBron James. Like, LeBron's been in the league for 40 years. Is very clearly the best player ever. What does he need Darvin Ham or JJ Redick to say? You know what I mean? However, if you look at a team like, let's say Detroit, it's not that they were lacking talent, but they were clearly sputtering for the longest. And the minute Dan Campbell comes in there and Brad Holmes comes in there and changes the course and the culture of that team to be a hard-nosed, gritty Detroit team, look at how well they're performing. I say that also speaking to the talent of these quarterbacks. Tom Brady's kind of touched on this recently, but what really trips me out the most is how often that these young quarterbacks are rushed into bad systems. I say that to say, a couple years ago, we had the draft of Baker Mayfield, Sam Darnold, Josh Allen, Josh Rosen, Lamar Jackson. One of these guys didn't so work out. But I think that's a part of what I'm getting to, because I think the system that he was put into wasn't set up for him to succeed. Meanwhile, you had Baker Mayfield go to the Browns, and that was a sputtering system at that time. Kevin Stefanski comes in there, and he instantly takes that team to the playoffs. He looks like a really good quarterback. And then they ship him off to Carolina. You have Sam Darnold that comes in there, who, I'm going to get to the Jets in a bit for Maul's sake. But you have Sam Darnold that comes in there that goes to the Jets, who, if we're being quite honest, I don't think the Jets, at least in my lifetime, have ever really developed a quarterback well. You bring Sam Darnold in there. You don't give him a really good offensive line. The weapons are, fine at the time. And he doesn't perform. And then you get the video with him saying he's seeing ghosts. And I felt bad for him then, because it's like, look, yeah, he's seeing ghosts. You're not setting him up to succeed. Now, he goes to Carolina. If you're noticing a trend here, you go to a team like Carolina, where the coaching has always been kind of mid, the owner has always kind of meddled into the situation, and nothing has really panned out for Carolina quarterbacks. But both of those guys, Baker and Sam Darnold, spent time in there, and now they're both excelling. One went to Tampa, who has really good weapons, and one went to who's arguably the best offensive mind in football, with Kevin O'Connell. And I want to speak to coaching a bit more. You have a system like the 49ers. You have Jimmy Garoppolo coming in there. You have, I forget who it was when Jimmy got hurt. Oh, they drafted Trey Lance. Who, frankly, we don't know what he can do yet. But you have Jimmy there. You have Trey Lance. And you have Brock Purdy, who you drafted as Mr. Irrelevant. I like Brock Purdy. But there's something that really sticks out at the fact that all three of those guys were in there. And frankly, the 49ers never lost a beat, never lost a step, and have been competitive the whole time. And that speaks to the fact that Kyle Shanahan is a brilliant offensive mind. And I think that when you get the right coach, of a coach that believes in a guy and really stands behind the guy and supports the guy and pushes them forward, it really speaks wonders to what the players are able to do. Because I like Brock. But you put him on the Patriots right now, and look, I'm the biggest Patriot guy you're going to see. You put him on the Patriots right now, and he's probably no better than Jacoby Brissett. Because at the end of the day, he's being set up perfectly in the system that he is. And that's same with Darnold. I think Baker is talented, but that's the same. He had Dave Canales for a year to revive him. You look at a guy like Geno Smith, who had a guy to revive him. He had a guy in Dave Canales to revive him initially. And these are guys that are excelling way past what they're anticipated because you got the right coaches. Now I want to speak some stats to you guys a little bit. Got some stats pulled up. This speaks to how these young guys are being produced and how these young guys are being brought up. There was a lot to be made pre-draft this year about the quarterback going to the right system and who gets what system. And there was a lot to be made about whoever goes to Minnesota is in the best situation, which I still agree with. I think Kevin O'Connell is the best offensive coach in football, to be honest with you. They're performing way above their means with Sam Darnold, and I think Sam Darnold's good, but I think Kevin O'Connell's really making that thing go. But you look at a system like Chicago. They brought in all these pieces. However, Matt Eberflus is still the head coach, who's a defensive mind, and Shane Waldron is the offensive coordinator, who's, fine, but he's bounced around a bit. And then you look at a guy like Caleb Williams, where you got people saying, he's mid, he might not be that good, he's a little erratic, and I'm like, you're not setting the kid up to be successful when you don't provide him with brilliant minds that could speak to and really push forward his talent. You look at a guy like Drake May, who, for me, look, I got the Drake May jersey on deck. It's really frustrating that he's not playing, but I get it. You don't have the system to really excel the kid yet. You don't have the system. You don't have a good offensive line, and your offensive coordinator has his first year where he's now trying to install an offense with pieces that, it's hard to unlock because the offensive line is bad, but also they're not necessarily the best number one pieces. Then you look at a guy like J.J. McCarthy, who in his first game, he looked fantastic. And he looked fantastic. He looked like he had a promising future because Kevin O'Connell was setting him up for success. And now, the cream of the crop thus far. And I really, really love that this kid is performing. And I really wanted him as a Patriot, honestly. But Jaden Daniels, let me give you a stat. Jaden Daniels has been fantastic. This Washington offense looks otherworldly, but the stat that sticks out to me the most is Jaden Daniels is completing currently 82.1% of his passes. 82.1%. The kid is more likely to throw a touchdown than an incompletion, I feel like, at this point. It's crazy, but that speaks to Cliff Kingsbury. We all knew that Jaden Daniels was talented. We all knew that all three of the top guys were talented. But completing 82.1% of your passes, that's like a coach setting you up that you could get a layup every time you're down the floor in basketball. And this is the beautiful thing about watching these guys play. You have coaches that invest and believe in them, and when you have that as a young guy, it unlocks a talent like no other. It's the same situation you saw with Brian Flores. going from Brian Flores in Miami to Mike McDaniel. I don't think Mike McDaniel is fantastic. I think there's something to be said about how that Miami offense looks without Tua. Look, Tua's good. Tua can play. But there's something to be said about the fact that as soon as Tua's gone, your offense just sputters. At the same time, Mike McDaniel instills confidence in Tua, and through that confidence, Tua looks night and day better than what he did like with Brian Flores. All is this to say, look, NFL teams, please stop drafting these young guys if you don't have every plan in place and everything going towards developing them. You need to develop them. If you don't have everything in place and every step that you take is not pushed towards, what can I do to make this young man succeed? Leave them alone. Take another player and save these guys' future, because there's a lot of young talent coming up, and the NFL is going to be so much better if we just invest in the youth the right way. Get your offensive coordinator, get a plan in place, and get these young guys producing for their future.